Have you ever been so focused on a task that you realize, oh, it's been 5 hours, I skipped my lunch, I skipped my dinner, it's probably 11 o'clock, and then you realize, oh, I'm so hungry, I might as well go for the chocolates, crisps, cakes, I just need some stimulation. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 reasons, if you have ADHD, why you might be more likely to binge eat. So the first reason why you're more likely to binge eat if you have ADHD is because you have reduced levels of interoceptive awareness. So interoceptive awareness is the awareness that we feel when we are recognizing our hunger cues or urgency to use a toilet. It's basically our body cues. So if I feel like hungry, I could sense a higher level of interoceptive awareness. I'm feeling like I have a grumbling stomach, I'm feeling lightheaded. Another reason why interoceptive awareness might be really helpful is you get to sense, okay, I need to use a toilet. But sometimes if you're so focused on one thing, interoceptive awareness kind of goes out the window. Sometimes your urge to eat kind of goes out the window. You don't feel like, okay, eating will just be over there. I'm gonna focus on this task. Maybe even sometimes you never get that feeling you want to use the toilet and then you just try to push through your task, whatever you're trying to focus on, and then the feeling of going to the toilet, that you try to feel like, oh, I push that aside, I don't really feel like I need to. And then all of a sudden, when you stop the task, your urgency goes out the window. You feel like you really want to binge eat, you want to rush to the toilet as quick as possible. So that's why you might be more likely to binge eat, because if you're so focused, hyper-focused, people with ADHD, or if you have ADHD, then you might have a lower level of interoceptive awareness. So story time, I don't have ADHD, but I do get that feeling when I used to play like games online, like Warcraft, RuneScape. I love PC games. Hours would fly by. I wouldn't even feel hungry, and then when I'd stop gaming, when I'd have a break, then I'd have a full-on massive overeating episode. I'd eat all the crisps, cookies, cakes, and then I'd quickly just run back to the computer just so I could get back to playing and gaming. So this cycle could continue on and on and on. Binge eating, hyper-focused, binge eating, hyper-focused. You're not really in tune with your hunger cues or with your other cues in your body, really, your internal cues. But let's talk about like hunger at the moment, what we're here about, binge eating. So how can we increase our interoceptive awareness if you have ADHD? So it's important to recognize that interoceptive awareness is like a volume. It can be increased or it can be decreased. Because if you had a problem with interoceptive awareness, you'd have a problem using the toilet also, because our gut is linked to our brain, the gut-brain axis. Other things, aside from ADHD and being hyper-focused on a task, that can lower levels of interoceptive awareness, but also trying to be dieting, trying to listen to external cues rather than internal cues. If you follow fitness apps, they often have calorie counters or macro counters essentially, and if you don't fit your macros, or if you don't stick to your macros, then you're just gonna skip meals, you're gonna ignore the hunger. The more you ignore it, the lower levels of your interoceptive awareness will essentially decrease. As a little add-on, as a bonus tip, if you want to increase your interoceptive awareness with your hunger, then try to be more in tune. Try to set alarm breaks like every 2 hours. Have an alarm break. If you're gaming, have an alarm break for like every 2 hours where you feel like, okay, now's the time to see how I feel about my stomach. Is my stomach grumbling? Am I feeling lightheaded? Am I feeling a bit hangry or irritable? Those are signs of hunger. So try to recognize those and set an alarm break. That's a really good tip. So moving on to number 2, why you're more likely to struggle with binge eating if you have ADHD is you might have lack of stimulation with your meals. So if you're told to go on a diet and have chicken, broccoli, and rice, there's not much stimulation, it's not really satisfying, it's not really enjoyable. So if you're gonna have a snack, which is, let's say, chocolate chips, which is an ADHD person's number one weakness, essentially, from what I've been hearing. Sure, it's delicious, it's giving you dopamine, which is great, but it's not giving you much stimulation. We need to have meals which are fully balanced, so it reduces our levels of urges to binge eat because it's satisfying our body physically, but also mentally. So here are 3 things you can do. So number 1 is to make sure that when you have a meal or a snack, make sure you try to implement food pairing. So food pairing is if you're gonna have like chocolate chips, don't have it on its own. Try to pair it with protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. So it sounds like a lot, essentially, but a good example is if you're gonna have chocolate chips, is have it with Greek yogurt and some seeds and maybe some honey. So that's gonna be nice, delicious, and balanced. If you're having balanced levels of meals, essentially protein, fats, carbs, and fiber, and balanced snacks, then it's gonna maintain your blood sugar levels, it's gonna reduce the urge to binge eat, and it's gonna maintain your levels of dopamine. The dopamine levels are not gonna go high and they're not gonna crash, just like your blood sugar levels. So second tip I highly recommend, and you probably have been doing this for a while already if you have ADHD, but if you don't, then this is really helpful to implement. The thing I highly recommend is to increase your caffeine intake. So coffee, tea, green tea, even caffeine pills, because caffeine is an ADHDer's best friend. The reason why is because caffeine increases the production of dopamine, and dopamine is also your best friend. So that can reduce your urges to binge eat, and you don't really need for like stimulation as much because you're already stimulated with dopamine. So the third tip on how to increase the stimulation with your meals is it kind of works with number 1 as I mentioned earlier, is to what I call make a rainbow. And I know it's a play on words, but try to make sure your meals contain lots of colors. And I'm gonna go through certain examples here. As I mentioned earlier, that having balanced meals and having as much color as possible can increase stimulation and also like regulate your dopamine levels throughout the day, so you're having less urges to binge eat. So here are a few examples of rainbow snacks, which I'll pop over here. So cheese sticks, cucumbers, and hummus. Crisps, crackers, grapes, raspberries, and protein yogurt. That's protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. Pancakes with chocolate, various fruit, a bit of egg, salmon, and salami, and finally cheese, salami, and salted crackers. So you can see from these examples over here that it's full of convenient sources of protein. You don't have to make a full-on meal. You don't have to make a very fancy snack. So you just need to have convenient sources of protein, fats, and carbs, such as cheese cubes, pre-cooked lentils, salmon, tuna, all those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be very fancy, as long as you're hitting your protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. And finally, reason number 3 is when you feel guilt, shame, or embarrassment, whether it's about having a poor body image day, or you had a binge eating episode, feel guilty, or you had a really bad sad day, or anything, any kind of inconvenience, you can experience higher levels of emotional distress. That's what the studies show for people who have ADHD. And I just want to kind of confirm it, because I don't have ADHD, but if you feel like you have higher levels of emotional distress when you feel guilt, shame, and embarrassment, just comment below. And what are your main triggers? So what can lead to emotional distress? When you follow the binge restrict cycle, which is oftentimes, let me know if you relate to this, you jump onto a diet and then you feel like you really need to binge eat, and then you feel guilty, and then you promise to yourself the next day, okay, I'm gonna make up for all the calories eaten, I'm gonna jump onto a diet again. This is going against all of your ADHD needs. You're skipping meals, you're not having balanced meals, you're not receiving any dopamine, any stimulation, and you're increasing your levels of guilt. You're building yourself up to fall, essentially, when you jump onto a restricted diet after a binge. So what I tell people who have ADHD and binge eating is to anti-diet, which is don't jump onto a diet after a binge eating episode. Just continue to eat regular meals, regular snacks that are fully balanced. Remember, try to include the rainbow and then see how you feel. What I highly recommend is when you're eating regular meals and snacks, because you're probably thinking right now, okay, Jonathan, how can I have regular meals and snacks if I struggle with ADHD? Like, I could be so focused on gaming. What I highly recommend is to be strict with yourself and set a timer on your phone or alarm clock or whatever you use. So what I highly recommend is to start off with every 2 hours. Try to set an alarm clock, and when that alarm clock rings, see how you feel. Try to increase your interoceptive awareness. See if your stomach's grumbling. Try to feel if you're a bit lightheaded or a bit cranky, hangry, essentially. Then head over to have a balanced meal or a balanced snack. Remember, rainbow. Make sure it includes protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. And then see how you feel afterwards. Am I feeling comfortably full? Every time you're trying to body check, trying to check how you feel, you're increasing your levels of interoceptive awareness. You're increasing the volume of interoceptive awareness, and you're implementing regular meals much more. Then you can try to extend that alarm clock to maybe every 4 hours. And then maybe if you're really good with including your meals and snacks regularly, maybe you won't even need an alarm clock. But I highly recommend continuing to take your ADHD medications and following everything your doctor says. Remember, this is just a suggestion. This is not a substitute to personalized advice, and I should have a disclaimer at the start of this video, but I'm just here to remind you that if your doctor says anything against this, then follow your doctor. This is not direct medical advice. And if you found this all helpful, comment below. And if you want to learn how to end binge eating, then check over here on how to end binge eating. Probably try to add in more about the rainbow on a video on how to create balanced meals. And check the link in the description if you want to learn more about binge eating. Check out my free ebook. You can just download that freely. I'll just send that straight to your email as a 50-page PDF. My free webinars on how to reintroduce trigger foods, my one-to-one coaching, and my 30-day free 30 videos binge reboot course. So let me know how you get on with all of these tips, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!